You know that feeling, right? Staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, thinking, why can't I just sleep? You probably chalk it up to stress, or maybe too much coffee. A personal problem. But what if I told you your exhaustion isn't just about you? What if it's the bedrock of a new $500 billion global economy? Today, we're pulling back the covers on this massive landscape that's changing everything, from how we build houses to where venture capitalists are placing their bets.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to unpack a number so big it basically acts like a silent recession. Then, we'll dive into the kind of weird cultural trends that are popping up because we're all so tired. After that, we'll watch a full-on business brawl between the old guard and the new tech giants. And we'll wrap it all up with 3 specific business ideas that are just waiting for someone to grab them.
So let's just start with a number. And look, this number is so huge it feels completely made up, but I promise you, it is devastatingly real. It's the cost of a silent recession that's quietly draining our economy day after day. $411 billion. Just let that sink in. That's not some government budget line item. That is how much money the U.S. economy loses every single year just because people aren't sleeping enough. To put that into perspective for you, that's bigger than the entire GDP of countries like Finland or Colombia. This is a massive economic emergency that's hiding in plain sight. But how? I mean, where's all that money actually going?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? It's not like there's a giant bonfire of cash somewhere. It's way more subtle than that. It's leaking out of the system in millions of tiny, invisible ways every day. So let's follow the money.
Okay, so where are the leaks? Well, the first one's pretty obvious: absenteeism. People are just too wiped out to even get to work. But the real killer, the much more expensive problem, is something called presenteeism. Think about the burnt-out software engineer running on fumes who shows up and introduces one tiny bug into the code, a bug that costs millions to fix months later. Or the marketing manager who's so brain-fogged they miss a huge opportunity. These aren't small slip-ups, they are billion-dollar mistakes adding up. And then there's the stuff that's just plain dangerous. We're talking over 100,000 car crashes in the US every year from drowsy driving. The cost is enormous, both in dollars and in lives. And finally, it all plugs directly into our mental health crisis. Poor sleep is tied to depression, anxiety, burnout, a vicious cycle that costs the economy trillions. So to answer the question, is being tired actually expensive? Oh yeah, it is catastrophically expensive. And look, this is not just an American problem, not by a long shot. This is a full-blown global pandemic of exhaustion. Japan loses about $138 billion a year thanks to a work culture so intense, they literally have a word for death by overwork. It's karoshi. The UK is losing over $41 billion. This is a systemic problem, a drag on every major economy. We've essentially engineered a world that our biology just can't keep up with. Okay, so we have this massive economic problem. How does that start to show up in our actual lives? Well, this is where the data gets really interesting and honestly a little weird. Get this, nearly a third of all adults in the United States are in what people are now calling a sleep divorce. And if you narrow in on millennials, that number shoots up to almost 40%. This isn't some fringe idea anymore. This is a mainstream choice people are making to sleep in separate rooms from their partners, all to protect their sleep. Now, I know what you're thinking. A sleep divorce? Seriously? Does this mean a third of all couples have just given up? Is romance dead? But that's not what the data is pointing to. This isn't about a relationship failing. It's about a fundamental shift in priorities. See, this isn't a relationship trend, it's a real estate trend. It's gotten so common that architects and home builders are now designing houses with dual primary suites, 2 master bedrooms. I mean, think about that. When your sleep habits start changing the blueprints of new homes, you know you're looking at a powerful economic force. And if you thought sleeping in separate rooms was strange, get ready for this. 7% of US adults are now literally taping their mouths shut before they go to sleep. This isn't some old school remedy. It's a viral trend that exploded on TikTok, all driven by this desperate search for better sleep. It just goes to show you how far people are willing to go. You can see the cultural whiplash on this timeline. Just a few years ago, back in 2015, it was all rise and grind. Hustle culture was everything, and sleeping was for the weak. Then, 2020 hit, and the world changed. The collective question became, why am I so unbelievably tired? It was a global burnout moment. And that brings us to today, the era of sleepmaxxing. The goal isn't just to feel rested. The goal is to get a good biological ROI, to optimize and quantify every single second of sleep. So, whenever you have a cultural shift this big and this fast, a business battle is sure to follow. And that's exactly what's happening. It's a classic story of the old way versus the new way, the dinosaur versus the meteor. So, in one corner, you've got the old guard, Mattress firm. Their entire business model is selling you a big block of foam once a decade. It's a one-and-done, transactional relationship. And frankly, they're getting crushed. They've faced bankruptcy, store closures. It's been rough. And in the other corner, you've got the new guard, like Oura Ring. They don't sell you a thing. They sell you a service. They sell you your own data every single morning, wrapped in a monthly subscription. The result? An $11 billion valuation. This table really breaks it down. The core product isn't a static mattress anymore. It's a dynamic data service. The revenue model isn't a one-time purchase. It's recurring revenue. And the value proposition, the promise they're making to you, has shifted from the vague idea of comfort to the hard, quantifiable promise of optimization. You're not just buying a feeling. You're buying a better score. This is a complete reinvention of an industry. And it is not just Oura. A whole new class of sleep fitness tech giants is taking over. You've got 8 Sleep, which calls itself the Tesla of the bedroom. You've got Hatch, which made a genius pivot from baby sleep aids to a viral wellness device for adults. And you've got Whoop, another multi-billion-dollar company built completely on subscriptions. The message from the market is crystal clear. The smart money is betting on data, not foam. So with all this change and all this money flying around, you have to ask, where are the opportunities? Where are the gaps in the market? Well, let's break down 3 untapped business ideas that are just sitting there waiting for someone to build them.
Idea number 1 is to become a sleep environment architect. Think of it like an interior designer, but instead of caring about how the room looks, you only care about how it performs. You're treating the bedroom like a high-performance training facility, and sleep is the sport. So what would you actually do? Well, first you'd conduct a deep sleep audit. You'd come into the client's home with light meters to find every tiny photon leaking from their electronics, sound meters for ambient noise, and even CO2 sensors to see if the air gets stale overnight. Then comes the environment build-out. Based on your data, you'd manage the installation of total blackout shades, acoustic panels, air purifiers, the works. But here's the key, the third step, performance tracking. You use the client's own Oura or Whoop data to prove your work made a difference. You show them a chart and say, look, your deep sleep is up 20% since we finished. You're not selling a service, you're selling a guaranteed result.
Okay, idea number 2 is a B2B play. Remember that $411 billion productivity problem we talked about? Well, companies are desperate for a solution. You would create rest and recovery workshops specifically for those high-stress teams in tech, finance, and law. And the pitch to a CEO is an absolute slam dunk. You just walk in and say, look, based on the national averages, your company is probably losing about $10 million a year just to employee fatigue. For less than what you're spending on your annual holiday party, our program can help you recapture 20% of that loss in the next 6 months. See, it's not a fluffy wellness pitch. It's an ROI pitch. It's a no-brainer. And this last idea targets a market that is shockingly huge and almost completely ignored. We've all heard of sleep coaches for babies, but who's helping the parents? Who's helping all the other adults? That's the adult sleep coach. The market for baby sleep coaches is totally saturated, but for adults, it's a wide open field, and adults have a brand new problem that babies don't. It's a condition called orthosomnia. It's the anxiety and stress people get from obsessively checking their sleep tracker scores. They wake up, see a bad score, and that stress ruins their day and makes it even harder to sleep the next night. It's a terrible feedback loop. An adult sleep coach wouldn't just give you basic advice. They would be your data interpreter, helping you understand what the numbers from that expensive ring on your finger actually mean, so it can make you feel better, not more anxious. When you step back and look at it, this whole cultural pivot from worshiping exhaustion to monetizing recovery is one of the biggest economic stories of our time. It really makes you wonder, what other huge, fundamental human needs are being totally reshaped by technology and data, creating these massive opportunities right under our noses? If you want to spot these billion-dollar trends before the market does, subscribe to World of AI Ideas right now. Don't sleep on your future.